My security camera abruptly disconnected. A sharp pang of intuition warned me that something terrible was unfolding back at my house in Denver. I immediately canceled my important business flight without hesitation to catch a taxi straight back to my neighborhood. The driver sped through the afternoon traffic while my mind raced with terrifying possibilities about the deliberate sabotage of my home system. I arrived 30 minutes later, stepping out quietly to approach my property from the backyard to avoid making any alerting sounds. I slowly crept toward the slightly opened back door, holding my breath as I pressed my ear against the narrow wooden gap. The voices echoing from inside my living room were intimately familiar, but their greedy words sent a freezing shockwave through my veins. Everything will belong to us. Valerie is really foolish. Those incredibly cruel words came directly from the mouths of the very people who originally gave me life. I slowly retreated deeper into the dark shadows of the porch while tightly gripping my smartphone in absolute disbelief. A profound sense of betrayal washed over me as I realized my own parents were actively conspiring to steal my financial assets. I swallowed my bitter tears before dialing the emergency dispatcher to report the malicious intruders hiding inside my private sanctuary. If you have ever experienced a devastating betrayal from your own flesh or blood, please stay tuned to discover exactly how I delivered the ultimate legal consequences to those who selfishly tried to ruin my future. A few months prior to that chaotic afternoon at the airport, my life began experiencing some highly unusual attention from the very people who raised me. For my entire adult life, my father Arthur and my mother Martha maintained a distinctly cold distance from my personal affairs. They consistently treated me less like a beloved daughter, but rather more like a convenient financial tool whenever their irresponsible choices caught up with them. Whenever my phone rang with their contact information displaying on the screen, I knew they were calling solely to demand money to resolve their mounting past debts. They never asked about my grueling hours at the architecture firm or cared if I felt completely exhausted from the heavy workload. Their parental affection was strictly transactional because it depended entirely on how quickly I could transfer funds into their bank accounts. I spent years accepting this painful reality while quietly building my career without expecting any genuine emotional support from my family. However, that deeply ingrained dynamic shifted dramatically without any logical explanation during the recent months leading up to the incident. Mom and Dad suddenly transformed into an overwhelmingly attentive pair of parents who constantly inserted themselves into my daily routine. They began visiting my home unannounced on a regular basis while carrying homemade meals packed in plastic containers. During these frequent visits, they would sit on my living room sofa asking highly specific questions about my professional schedule, along with my daily movements. They wanted to know exactly when I left for the office, along with what time I usually returned home from work. I initially mistook this sudden intrusive behavior for a genuine attempt at rebuilding our heavily fractured relationship. I foolishly believed they had finally realized the error of their ways by genuinely wanting to establish a proper family bond after years of neglect. That incredibly naive illusion completely shattered during a particularly tense family dinner held inside my dining room. My firm had recently awarded me a significant project requiring a mandatory 2-week overseas business trip to Europe. While we were eating the dinner Mom had brought over, I accidentally revealed my upcoming travel itinerary while discussing my current workload. I casually mentioned the exact departure date, including how long my house would remain completely unoccupied during my international assignment. The moment those specific words left my mouth, the entire atmosphere at the dining table shifted noticeably. The casual conversation abruptly stopped as a recognizable gleam of intense greedy interest flashed across both of their faces. They immediately leaped at the opportunity by suggesting they should take over the responsibility of watching my property while I was away. Dad leaned forward across the table, insisting they needed full access to water my indoor plants to ensure the premises remained perfectly secure. Mom quickly chimed in with a sickly sweet tone while begging me to provide them with the spare house key immediately. She even had the audacity to ask for the master passcode to my newly installed smart security system under the guise of wanting to thoroughly clean my floors. They presented their aggressive demands as a massive favor they were generously offering to help their busy daughter manage her life. Their sudden eagerness to perform manual labor in my house felt incredibly staged, considering they had never once offered to help me with anything before. Recognizing this suffocating overenthusiasm severely contradicted their historically selfish nature, a strong wave of intense caution washed over me. I firmly refused their persistent requests by explicitly stating I had already hired a professional service to handle the property maintenance. The instant I denied them access to my home, a flash of genuine anger twisted their expressions into something ugly and resentful. Mom tightly gripped her fork while Dad clenched his jaw in obvious frustration over losing control of the situation. However, they quickly masked their evident irritation with strained smiles to prevent me from growing overly suspicious regarding their true motives. They forcefully changed the conversation topic while politely finishing their remaining food in absolute awkward silence. They left my house shortly after dinner concluded, but the disturbing memory of their momentary rage stayed permanently etched in my mind as a warning I should never have ignored. That weekend, right as I pulled my heavy suitcase up to the security checkpoint at the Denver airport, my smartphone screen suddenly flashed brightly with a disturbing alert. The sophisticated smart home management application delivered an urgent emergency notification indicating that the entire security camera system inside my property had been completely disconnected from the network. I immediately stepped out of the busy passenger queue to frantically restart the application multiple times in a desperate attempt to refresh the live video feed. I stood near a crowded terminal pillar while constantly swiping my thumb across the glass screen, hoping the connection would magically re-establish itself. However, the advanced diagnostic interface clearly revealed this sudden blackout was absolutely not a routine internet outage or a temporary regional network failure affecting my neighborhood. The system's technical log explicitly showed that an unknown intruder had intentionally bypassed the external electronic safeguards by manually severing the primary power supply directly from inside my house. This chilling realization instantly triggered a terrifying connection in my mind regarding the recent bizarre behavior previously exhibited by my parents. I immediately recalled Mom and Dad displaying a frantic desperation to acquire my spare house keys just a few days prior to my scheduled departure. The lingering suspicion I had been harboring since our last encounter rapidly mutated into a profound sense of genuine fear for the safety of my personal sanctuary. I stared blankly at the loading icon spinning endlessly on my mobile device, while trying to comprehend the massive betrayal potentially occurring within my own walls. The undeniable evidence stared back at me through the darkened digital screen while I loudly muttered my horrifying conclusion to absolutely no one in particular. The system is reporting an offline error. Someone has physically unplugged the main server in the living room. Those specific spoken words solidified my terrifying theory, while simultaneously destroying any remaining naive hope I held onto regarding the true motives of my family members. A powerful surge of protective adrenaline effectively overpowered any remaining concerns regarding my professional obligations or the potential career consequences of missing the overseas business assignment. I made an instantaneous and uncompromising decision to abandon the highly anticipated European trip, without a single ounce of hesitation weighing on my currently racing conscience. I aggressively grabbed the sturdy handle of my rolling luggage while sprinting directly toward the nearest airline customer service counter to formally announce the immediate cancellation of my boarding pass. The confused ticketing agent attempted to process my sudden request slowly while questioning my abrupt change of plans during such a busy holiday travel period. I completely ignored her probing administrative questions while snatching my printed cancellation receipt from the counter before turning my back on the international departure gates forever. Sprinting frantically through the sliding automatic glass doors, I headed toward the bustling exterior passenger pickup zone, while avoiding dangerous collisions with other distracted travelers navigating the sidewalk. Refusing to wait in the lengthy rideshare line, I aggressively waved down an available yellow taxi, pulling up to the designated transportation curb reserved for immediate departures. Without waiting for the driver to assist me, I hastily shoved my heavy suitcase into the back seat before throwing myself inside the vehicle alongside a handful of large cash bills to guarantee his immediate cooperation. "Please drive to this address as fast as you possibly can. I will pay double the fare." The surprised driver immediately registered the extreme urgency radiating from my panicked voice, while aggressively stepping on the gas pedal to merge seamlessly onto the busy metropolitan highway. The remaining duration of the terrifying journey was spent gripping the worn leather armrest while continuously refreshing the unresponsive security application on my phone in a completely futile effort. My heart violently hammered against my ribcage as the speeding vehicle weaved recklessly through the heavy afternoon Denver traffic heading back toward my quiet residential neighborhood. Every passing minute felt like an agonizing eternity, while my mind vividly visualized the absolute worst-case scenarios unfolding behind the locked doors of my currently vulnerable property. Mental preparation became absolutely necessary, as I needed to physically verify the structural integrity of my home while readying myself to confront whatever nightmare awaited me at the end of this frantic automobile ride. 30 minutes later, I explicitly instructed the taxi driver to stop exactly 1 block away from my residential property so I could proceed on foot without attracting unwanted attention. Paying the fare quickly to dismiss the vehicle, I cautiously navigated the familiar suburban neighborhood while maintaining a completely silent profile to avoid nosy neighbors. I carefully stepped across the freshly cut grass of my private backyard while intentionally avoiding any dry leaves that might betray my physical presence through snapping sounds. Slowly approaching the exterior brick structure of my house, I pressed my body flat against the siding to remain undetected within the lengthening afternoon shadows. A series of distinct rustling sounds immediately caught my heightened attention, emanating directly from the specific room functioning as my professional home office. The unmistakable noise of heavy wooden furniture scraping harshly against the hardwood flooring indicated someone was actively moving things around inside my personal workspace without my authorization. Moving with extreme caution toward the large glass window overlooking the garden, I positioned myself perfectly behind the exterior wall structure to conceal my silhouette from anyone inside. I slowly leaned my head forward to peer straight through a narrow gap existing between the partially drawn blackout curtains covering the large glass panes. My heart plummeted violently into my stomach when my own eyes directly witnessed Mom and Dad standing right in the middle of my previously organized sanctuary. They were acting incredibly erratically while frantically pulling open various desk drawers to furiously toss my neatly filed client folders recklessly onto the woven carpet. Both of them appeared entirely consumed by a manic desperation, while physically destroying the orderly environment I had meticulously maintained for my architectural business. Watching their destructive behavior unfold before my very eyes, it became horrifyingly obvious they were actively hunting for my most confidential financial documents, rather than searching for loose cash. They completely ignored my expensive computer monitors sitting on the desk's surface, while exclusively focusing their frantic energy on locating my primary storage compartments containing sensitive legal paperwork. They were ruthlessly tearing through the metal filing cabinets in a desperate effort to uncover my blank checkbook alongside the original property title deed, proving my ownership. Furthermore, their chaotic search pattern clearly targeted the secure leather folder specifically containing my legally binding financial power of attorney paperwork, drafted for medical emergencies. The sheer audacity of their targeted invasion demonstrated a highly calculated attempt to completely compromise my entire economic foundation. Pressing my ear closer to the cold glass pane, their muffled voices became distinctly clearer through the slightly unlatched window frame, providing essential afternoon ventilation for the stuffy office. Search carefully for the checkbook and the property ownership certificate. It must definitely be in the bottom drawer. Dad barked those harsh instructions while forcefully yanking the heavy bottom cabinet completely off its metal tracks, causing a loud metallic crash to echo throughout the room. Mom immediately responded to his urgent command while frantically sifting through a scattered pile of my personal banking statements covering the hardwood floor. As long as we forge the signature on the power of attorney, we can sell this apartment entirely before she flies back. Hearing their explicitly criminal conversation completely paralyzed my physical body, while my brain struggled to process the sheer magnitude of their malicious intentions targeting my hard-earned livelihood. I stood completely stunned within the gathering shadows of my backyard, while absorbing the horrific reality of my current family situation destroying my entire perception of unconditional love. A profound wave of absolute disgust surged intensely through my entire nervous system upon witnessing the people bearing the title of my parents behaving identically to hardened professional thieves. They had successfully weaponized my biological trust to orchestrate a devastating financial attack designed to leave me completely bankrupt upon returning from a non-existent international business trip. Their meticulously planned betrayal stripped away any remaining familial affection I previously harbored toward the incredibly selfish individuals who originally brought me into this world. I remained perfectly still within the exterior darkness, while aggressively preparing my mind to execute the necessary legal countermeasures against the ruthless criminals currently vandalizing my personal sanctuary. Standing perfectly rooted within the darkness outside the porch, my mind suddenly recalled a highly distressing warning phone call taking place a few months ago. During that specific lengthy conversation, my Aunt Irene explicitly advised me to remain extremely cautious regarding the security of my personal financial assets. She possessed a profound historical understanding regarding the bottomless greed driving my parents toward exploiting their own family members for monetary gain. She vividly recounted several previous instances where they manipulated relatives to secure unearned funds for their questionable personal investments. At that specific moment in the past, I completely dismissed her genuine warnings while blindly placing my complete trust in our shared biological bloodline. I foolishly believed my professional success would eventually earn their genuine parental respect instead of merely turning me into their primary financial target. The incredibly cruel reality currently unfolding right before my eyes effectively proved she was absolutely correct regarding their deceitful true nature. You must actively protect your own money. They are definitely targeting that specific apartment right now. Hearing her prophetic voice echoing clearly inside my head forced me to aggressively cast aside any lingering emotional weakness regarding my treacherous family members. I cautiously retreated much deeper into the dense landscaping bushes surrounding the property to ensure my absolute physical safety before initiating my defensive countermeasures. Reaching carefully into my jacket pocket, I securely gripped my smartphone while directly dialing the local emergency dispatcher to officially report an ongoing illegal home invasion. I calmly provided the required geographical coordinates while explicitly stating that multiple unauthorized individuals were actively trespassing inside my private residence. I deliberately avoided mentioning their biological relationship to me, while exclusively describing them as hostile intruders actively attempting to steal high-value financial documents. The emergency operator quickly confirmed the immediate dispatch of several police patrol units heading toward my specific location to intercept the perpetrators currently occupying my workspace. Immediately after disconnecting the secure line with the local emergency authorities, I initiated an urgent phone call directly to my lawyer, Gordon. I rapidly informed him regarding the highly volatile situation currently occurring inside my house, while demanding swift legal intervention to protect my accumulated wealth from immediate theft. I specifically detailed their malicious verbal conversation regarding the forged power of attorney paperwork to properly emphasize the extreme urgency of my current precarious predicament. I explicitly instructed him to immediately execute an emergency legal order to completely freeze all my existing joint bank accounts tonight before any unauthorized financial withdrawals successfully processed through the banking network. I reminded him that Mom and Dad possessed my basic account routing numbers, making the immediate suspension of all digital transactions an absolute priority for my financial survival. Gordon, immediately contact the bank to freeze my joint account right now. Someone is attempting to steal the money. My dedicated attorney instantly recognized the severe gravity of the unfolding criminal situation while promising to contact the regional financial institution managers without any delay. He remained on the active phone line for several tense minutes to successfully lock down my vulnerable assets. He systematically verified the complete suspension of all outward monetary transfers while ensuring no one could access the stored funds without my physical presence at the local branch. After receiving his absolute verbal confirmation regarding the successful lockdown of my entire financial portfolio, a profound sense of tactical relief washed over my trembling body. I took a remarkably deep, stabilizing breath while methodically preparing my mind to directly confront the ruthless vandals actively destroying my beloved home. The overwhelming fear completely evaporated from my nervous system as pure determination permanently replaced my previous anxiety regarding the impending physical confrontation with Mom and Dad. Immediately after disconnecting the secure phone line with my lawyer, I aggressively pushed the heavy front door wide open while stepping straight into the main living room. My completely unexpected physical appearance inside the house severely stunned Mom and Dad into an absolute terrified silence. The sudden shock of seeing me standing there caused their trembling hands to instantly drop the thick folder of financial documents directly onto the hardwood floor. Dozens of highly sensitive banking records scattered wildly across the woven rug, while their previously focused expressions rapidly drained of all natural color. Their faces turned completely pale white with overwhelming panic as they instantly realized their meticulously crafted criminal conspiracy had entirely collapsed right before their very eyes. They stood perfectly frozen beside my office desk like cornered animals unable to process the severe magnitude of their immediate exposure. Attempting to rapidly salvage their incredibly desperate situation, they quickly plastered incredibly forced smiles across their visibly sweating faces. They nervously tried to construct a believable excuse regarding their intrusive, unauthorized presence inside my private workspace. They falsely claimed they were merely performing a thorough deep cleaning of my residence during my supposed international business absence. They attempted to convince me they were trying to provide a helpful surprise by organizing my chaotic professional files. We are merely reorganizing this incredibly messy pile of important documents for your benefit. Please do not misunderstand our actions. I completely refused to let them finish their pathetic, fabricated explanation designed specifically to manipulate my emotional vulnerabilities. I took several intimidating steps forward, while coldly interrupting their desperate lies by loudly exposing their deliberate physical sabotage of my digital security system. I pointed a steady accusatory finger directly at the specific real estate transfer paperwork they were hastily attempting to conceal behind their trembling backs. I demanded absolute accountability regarding their malicious intent to completely bankrupt my future through blatant financial fraud. Stop acting immediately. How do you explain the physically unplugged security camera system alongside this forged power of attorney, transferring my property? Right as our intense verbal confrontation reached its absolute peak of hostile tension, multiple armed law enforcement officers aggressively burst through the open entryway. The uniformed municipal patrolmen rushed inside my house, with their tactical equipment securely drawn to completely neutralize the reported active threat. Their heavy combat boots stomped loudly against the wooden floorboards, while they quickly surrounded the two trespassers standing near the filing cabinets. This is the police department. Everyone place your hands directly behind your heads while stepping away from the desk immediately. The heavily equipped officers swiftly secured the chaotic scene by physically separating the terrified perpetrators away from the scattered documentary evidence. Several officers systematically proceeded to confiscate the fraudulent real estate contracts, along with the blank checkbook, serving as undeniable proof of their criminal intent. Facing the severe reality of their immediate physical arrest, Mom and Dad began wailing incredibly pitifully, while dropping directly to their knees in sheer desperation. They desperately attempted to weaponize our biological blood ties by begging me to instruct the arresting officers to permanently cancel the formal criminal investigation. They loudly pleaded for familial mercy while explicitly demanding I protect them from experiencing the harsh judicial consequences resulting from their own malicious greed. They continuously reminded me of their parental status while shamelessly insisting I owed them my unconditional forgiveness, despite their treacherous actions. I stood completely resolute with a freezing cold demeanor while unequivocally denying their manipulative requests for unearned clemency. I firmly commanded the responding police officers to secure the metal handcuffs tightly around their wrists before formally escorting both criminals out of my house. The morning after the terrifying incident, I sat directly across from Gordon inside his professional law office to review the total damages while meticulously analyzing the collected physical evidence. Gordon formally presented the preliminary investigation results, clearly demonstrating how Mom and Dad had illegally duplicated my secure house keys several weeks beforehand, without triggering any suspicion. He systematically displayed the digital forensic evidence proving they had purposefully downloaded legally binding Colorado real estate power of attorney templates prior to my scheduled international flight. Their highly calculated preparation established an undeniable timeline of premeditated financial fraud, explicitly designed to completely strip away my rightful property ownership while I was supposedly traveling overseas. The printed documents sitting on the conference table represented the absolute destruction of my biological family unit exclusively through their own malicious financial greed. While we were carefully examining the forged paperwork, my smartphone continuously vibrated across the wooden desk with relentless incoming communications originating from my sister Brenda. She aggressively bombarded my personal device with viciously insulting voicemails explicitly blaming me for being an incredibly selfish daughter prioritizing money over family loyalty. She angrily accused me of heartlessly throwing our biological parents straight into the harsh criminal justice system without demonstrating a single ounce of basic familial compassion. How dare you actually let the police arrest your own biological parents? You are behaving absolutely insane regarding this minor misunderstanding. I immediately answered her subsequent incoming phone call, solely to deliver my final uncompromising response regarding her highly toxic emotional manipulation tactics targeting my vulnerable state. I absolutely do not have any parents who choose to behave exactly like common thieves. Stop calling this personal number immediately before I report your harassment. I disconnected the cellular transmission without a single ounce of hesitation, while permanently blocking her contact information to sever that highly toxic relationship completely from my newly established life. Focusing entirely on the ongoing legal strategy instead of dwelling on the familial fallout, I collaborated closely with Gordon to finalize the comprehensive criminal lawsuit, specifically targeting their blatant fraudulent activities. We systematically compiled the official police reports alongside the recovered bank statements to build an impenetrable narrative highlighting their deliberate attempt to bankrupt my entire future. Gordon meticulously organized the confiscated documents into neatly labeled folders, while confidently assuring me regarding the overwhelming strength of our impending courtroom presentation against the perpetrators. Our legal case remains incredibly solid against them. The severe criminal charge of forging real estate documents will absolutely ensure they pay heavily for their actions. Following the highly productive legal consultation concluding around noon, I formally requested my best friend Cynthia to visit my compromised residence to assist with an emotionally draining organizational task. I explicitly directed her to help me thoroughly pack up every single personal item Mom and Dad had previously left behind inside my house during their frequent deceptive visits. We systematically gathered their abandoned clothing along with their plastic food containers into several large cardboard shipping boxes before scheduling a commercial delivery courier to mail them directly back to their current residential address. I aggressively scrubbed the various interior surfaces using exceptionally strong chemical cleaners to permanently erase all remaining physical traces of their deceptive existence from my newly reclaimed private sanctuary. Simultaneously, Gordon officially submitted a comprehensive formal legal petition requesting the municipal courthouse to immediately issue a permanent restraining order protecting my personal safety from any further familial retaliation. The drafted judicial mandate explicitly prohibited Arthur Martha alongside Brenda from approaching my physical proximity or attempting any further unauthorized communication through digital platforms. Furthermore, the stringent legal document permanently banned them from interfering with my financial assets or approaching my residential property under any conceivable circumstances moving forward. 1 year after that fateful courthouse trial, I am currently standing on the balcony of my new apartment while thoroughly enjoying my newly reclaimed independent life. The severe judicial consequences regarding the treacherous villains were executed flawlessly by the presiding judge during the criminal sentencing phase. Arthur alongside Martha received extensive suspended prison sentences, requiring them to constantly report directly to an assigned probation officer. They were heavily penalized with massive financial restitution fines, leaving them completely bankrupt while struggling miserably to survive daily. Their social reputation within their local community evaporated entirely, following the public exposure of their disgusting monetary greed. Brenda also suffered severe collateral damage directly resulting from her continued toxic alignment with their malicious criminal activities. I permanently terminated her monthly financial allowance, completely destroying her previously comfortable lifestyle, funded entirely by my architectural salary. Every single desperate attempt they made regarding contacting me or begging pitifully for unearned without ever granting a single emotional exception to my strict boundaries. I aggressively sold the old residential property, carrying those highly toxic memories to a local real estate developer. Utilizing those acquired funds alongside my legal victory settlement, I purchased a significantly more secure living space located in a completely different neighborhood. Relieved from the massive financial burden previously draining my bank accounts, I focused my entire undivided attention toward advancing my professional architectural career. My newly established independence allowed me to successfully secure several lucrative international contracts leading directly toward massive corporate achievements. The profound trauma caused by their calculated betrayal initially required extensive professional therapy to properly process the devastating familial loss. However, surviving that horrific ordeal successfully forged an impenetrable layer of emotional armor around my previously vulnerable heart. I completely stopped feeling falsely obligated to support able-bodied adults simply because we shared identical biological genetic markers. The absolute peace characterizing my current daily routine proves that surgically removing toxic individuals from your environment remains the ultimate form of self-care. I currently spend my peaceful weekends sketching innovative building designs while appreciating the quiet safety surrounding my perfectly protected sanctuary. Their pathetic downfall serves as a permanent reminder regarding the destructive nature characterizing unearned entitlement directed toward successful relatives. I frequently reflect upon the specific moment I chose to dial the emergency dispatcher, instead of foolishly confronting them completely alone, without legal protection. That singular, decisive action effectively saved my entire accumulated wealth while permanently preventing them from successfully executing their forged real estate transfer documents. My thriving architectural firm recently promoted me into a senior partnership position, directly validating my relentless dedication toward professional excellence over toxic family drama. I finally sleep peacefully every single night knowing my digital banking passwords remain completely inaccessible to the deceitful individuals attempting to orchestrate my